So last night, myself, Ajahn Krundamo, Ajahn Yaniko, just returned from Canada, and we were gathering there with the other branch monasteries in North America. So it was an opportunity for the abbots and senior monks to get together and to discuss various issues that are coming up in terms of our living a monastic life in the West, and so because there's 6 monasteries that are affiliated with Ajahn Chah, in 3 in Canada and 3 in America. So we've started to gather. It's the 3rd year now, and it's very supportive to come together and to discuss. And it's very informal, which is very pleasant. But it's also, I think, really meaningful. That sense of, I think of course, the word that comes up most strongly is Kalyanamitta, is being good spiritual friends, and and that's something that I would say, whether one is a monastic, having good spiritual friendships is important in terms of our ongoing practice and training, and similarly for the lay community, having good spiritual friendships, trying to keep in contact with those who support that kind of relationships of amity and support in the Dhamma. And even the reflecting back on the Buddha himself, didn't he didn't cast himself as a sort of some world transcending spiritual leader that everybody has to follow. He's cast himself as a Kalyanamitta for the world, which is a really lovely image in that even the Buddha himself is seeing himself as a spiritual friend for those seeking freedom from dukkha, freedom from suffering, freedom from the complications and stresses of human existence, and so that in our lives, trying to pay attention to the ways in which we cultivate our relationships and friendships within the world. It's even in the monastery, just the what do we base our relationships on, how we what do we talk about when we gather? Because I've been in monasteries where the primary function of getting together as a little group was just to get together and complain about everybody else, which is not really a wholesome foundation for growth in the Dhamma. Using the contact and connection with each other in a way to support and reflect on the practice. So, and similarly for the lay community, even let's say like a lunar observance day. From the time of the Buddha, the Buddha encouraged taking the time to set aside the responsibilities of family and society and culture, and to come to the monastery and practice, reflect, be in community with others who are practicing, others who are focusing on I say a life of clarity and peace. There's a very lovely sutta where the Buddha speaks of his kind of thought process in establishing the say like the uposatha precepts, the precepts for the lunar observance days, training precepts, and the kind of structure for the for establishing those aspiration of restraint and mindfulness, where it's just referring, say those arahants, those fully enlightened, fully awakened beings, they live their whole life refraining from taking the life of any living creature. What if the lay community came and spent a day and a night refraining from taking the life of any living creature? Those arahants, those fully awakened beings, they live their whole life taking what is not given. And so what if the lay community came and spent a day and a night to do that, devoting their time to that? So that basically all of the 8 precepts exactly in the same light, in the sense of to be able to step back and to step into a sphere of living and spending one's time for a day and a night as a fully awakened arahant would do. And it's a very beautiful image and aspiration, and to a certain degree as well for us as monastics. The taking on of our training is taking on a training that has the restraint of somebody who, if they were fully awakened, this is how they'd live. Somebody who is totally free from greed, hatred, and delusion, this is how they'd live. And of course that's not say the reality of how we are, is it's when we take our ordination, do our ordination procedure, we have our robes and our bowl, and we have the accoutrements of the religious seeker, but our greed, hatred, and delusion ordains with us, and but the structure and the form is one that supports the training with, understanding of, and relinquishment of those habits, tendencies, conditioning, the conditioning of the world. So, learning how to use forms and structures, learning how to use precepts and practices, that's say a skill that we have to learn, and that's actually, say, like when one reflects on the say one of the characteristics of one who has entered the stream of Dhamma, one who is a Sotapanna, one of the things that has been relinquished and let go of is clinging and attachment to precepts and practices, and sila patta paramasa. So that assumption that if one just followed a particular, kept this particular precept, kept this particular practice, followed the breath at this particular place in my body, then I would be pure and liberated and fully awakened. But it's not how it works. We have to learn how to develop skill and understanding with what are these precepts and practices. What are they? What are they for? What is their function? How does it work also with me personally? Because sometimes, there's this aspect of the middle way that the Buddha gives, both in terms of the middle way of teaching as well as the middle way of practice, is a pointing to the fact that there isn't sort of like an absolute, say, a way of putting forth effort. Because sometimes you can put forth a lot of effort, and sort of, okay, this path of practice that the Buddha teaches is a path of effort. The Buddha teaches right effort in the Eightfold Path, so I've got to put forth a lot of effort. But the reality is sometimes that's true and sometimes it's not. In that sometimes the more you try hard, you end up, the more you flail around and just create confusion and suffering for yourself. And so sometimes that putting forth, say, right effort is learning how to, say, relax and apply oneself in a way that brightens the mind or brings a stability and clarity to the heart. And sometimes that's accomplished through sometimes easing off. Sometimes it's accomplished through really pushing the envelope of what you think is reasonable even sometimes. So it's a middle way that is one only gains understanding of it through experience and investigation. This yoniso manasikara, wise attention, wise reflection, considered attention. So that one is attending closely to, okay, what am I doing? What's my intention? And what is the result? What is the result? What's the benefit? What's the drawback? That aspect of understanding the role of precept and practice. It isn't an absolute sense of okay, I'm not supposed to attach to precept and practice, so I guess I don't keep any precepts and don't do any practice. That's not what it's about. It's what is it that allows wholesome and skillful qualities to grow and flourish, and unskillful, unwholesome qualities to diminish and to be relinquished. So that aspect of say that insight into Silapata Paramasa, the relinquishing of attachment and clinging to precept and practice, is getting a more clear understanding of this middle way that the Buddha taught and set down as a way of practice. And that's where when the Buddha was asked by a deva of how did you cross the flood, in the sense that the flood is an image for samsara, for the round of rebirth and dukkha, and the Buddha spoke a bit cryptically, and that by not pushing forward and not staying still, I crossed the flood, and the deva said, well, what does that mean? And the Buddha said, well, when I push forward, I got agitated. When I stood still, when I relaxed too much, then I sank. So that without flailing around, without sinking into lassitude, there's a middle way of practice. There's a middle way of holding things. So that again, this is only understood and accomplished through experience and reflection. The teaching of the Buddhas is an experiential teaching, and even the Buddha's pointing to the Four Noble Truths is an expression of trying to understand what is our experience. What is the experience of dukkha? When do I feel dissatisfied or discontent, or there's a sense of dis-ease or stress? And how is that relinquished? How do I dwell in and experience the cessation of discontent, the cessation of dis-ease, the cessation of any kind of dissatisfaction, so that the mind is completely settled, the heart is spacious and clear, so that one has to keep exploring and see, well, what is my experience, as opposed to what is my idea of what I think I should be, or what I should be getting, or what I should be becoming, because we're great at conceiving ideas and ideals of what we should be, or what the world should be, and those are obstacles. As one of the other insights that is indicative of entering the stream of Dhamma is the insight into our identity view, because we build views of our identity, what we identify with as being me, what I am, what is mine, and those are identities that are built on conceiving and assumption, and we build that around our aspects of just a body and mind, the experience of body and mind, this physical form, this body. I am the body. This is me. This is who, and this is mine. And which is, that's easily seen through. In comparison to seeing through the way that we hold aspects of mind and mood and emotion as ourselves. But but the Buddha points to these, like the 5 aggregates of being: form of the physical body, feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, perception in terms of memory and the way that we give meaning to our experience, or that perception and labeling, because we come up with labels very quickly. Through memory, that person is a good person, that person's a bad person, I like that person, I don't like that person. And it's through memory. Or we think about that about ourselves. It's a label that we put on things through perception and memory, and assuming meaning. And the mind does that. That's what the mind is for. If we had to figure everything out in the present moment time, everything that we navigate the world with, then it just would be impossible. But it's learning how to recognize, well, that isn't the sort of the essence of what I am. It's just a memory. It's just an assumption. And to have that quality of mindfulness, awareness, and discernment, that's recognizing that. It isn't that it's just doubting it and trashing it all, but it's also not committing to the reality of it all the time. And so it's just understanding how this works. Again, this is where that framework of the Noble Truths is so important, because that's the measuring stick that we have to use in order to wend our way, to weave our way through those basic functions of the mind, of the human condition. Whether it's on the physical level of we've got bodies. We've got to look after them. Some of them are short, some of them are tall, some of them are old, some of them are young, some of them are male, some of them are female, and they manifest in different ways. But they can't be taken as our ultimate identity. They're just bodies. They have a certain characteristic that is common to all bodies. They are born, they get old, they get sick, they die. And so that rather than looking at the body as that something that we have to present as as a me, it's just it's something that we look after and have the opportunity to rely on in order to free the heart from suffering, from dukkha. And the same with the other aspects of our being, and that feeling, perception, mental formations, our thoughts, our emotions. How do we use thought? How do we work with emotion, consciousness itself? Why are we conscious of things? Is it just to make ourselves more miserable or confused? Or is it there in order to be a vehicle for seeing clearly what is what is the opportunity? What's the possibility? And the possibility is always this sense of clarity, of peace, of a freedom from distress, freedom from stress. There's this opportunity to experience this real deep well-being and ease, peace. So but when we say identify, we create an identity of me, which we're trying to prop up, or we're afraid is going to. This is who I actually really am. And sort of so often that somebody gets praised, and because they see you doing something, say quite good or noble, and then that praise is there, and then there's sort of this, but I'm not really worthy, or I'm not really. They don't really know how bad I really am. But that's an identity. It's just an attachment to a perception. It's an attachment to a particular view. And so it's our it's and so that ability to see clearly how we conceive of the of self, of me, of mine. This is when the Buddha, the idiom that the Buddha uses over and over again through the suttas, ahankara, mamankara, mananusaya, so the I-making, the mind-making, the underlying tendency to conceit. And say, so this is something that it's not something that's intrinsic, this sense of I. It's something that we make, that we create. Kara, ahankara. Kara is this thing we have that we're doing, that we're making, creating, and so that I-making, mind-making, underlying tendency to conceit. The underlying conceit from the perspective of the Buddha is just the way that we keep comparing ourselves to others, we create an image of ourselves by an identity for ourselves in comparison to others, which is both in the different ways of conceiving oneself of either inferior, equal, or superior, and then trying to prop it up, find the evidence, so that but that constant trying to compare oneself, and then worrying about it, obsessing over it, that is a constant source of dukkha. So that seeing through sakkaya ditthi, that identity view is the and it's just by paying attention to the building blocks of identity. And the building blocks are physical form, body, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. And all of them are, as you look at it and investigate it, they're impermanent, they're changing, they're unstable. And so trying to come up with a stable essence or identity, and a sense of I or me, is when it's built on something that is already impermanent and unstable. It's impossible. It's just not. It's not possible. It's just. And we keep doing it. The perception is there. The feeling is there. But it's built up, and it's the same way of just because we've dreamt of something, we had a dream, and we think something's going to be like this, and may or may not be, but probably not. It's just it's something that is conjured up. It's something that is we don't understand the machinations of it. So it was like the image that the Buddha uses for consciousness is consciousness is like a conjurer's trick, where a conjurer or a magician is able to pull a coin out of your ear, or make a card disappear, and so wow, it's really something. But it is something. It is really something as a conjurer's trick, but it isn't, say, a reality. It's because of the skill of the person that one can't recognize what's going on. We don't understand the mechanics of it, so we believe in it. So similarly, with consciousness is like that. It's building things out of assumptions, and then there are contact with the senses, building a sense of continuity and identity, but it's because we don't understand. This is why it's that development of mindfulness and clear comprehension, wise attention, reflection, investigation are so important. Establishing a clear discernment. I said all those aspects are fundamental to the Buddha's path. And that is the cultivation of the middle way, is in those aspects of how we develop mindfulness and wisdom. And so I mentioned it before, the phrase of how Ajahn Munindo it's been translated for years of the truth discerning awareness. And it's a really beautiful way of describing just that mindfulness and wisdom, satipanya. And it's those. I can remember being living with Ajahn Chah and not knowing much Thai, and it was, you start picking up on certain phrases, and because you hear them over and over again, and then that hearing that's satipanya, and Ajahn Chah always encouraging that development of mindfulness and wisdom, truth developing of truth discerning awareness, because that's what helps us see through the illusion that holds us tethered to dukkha, and seeing through the things that we think are so solid. It's like the Buddha's like mental formations with the Buddha, the image that the Buddha gives of mental formations. They are like a plantain tree, like a banana plant, a banana tree. And it's like actually basically like an onion, but of course bigger. And you can get these big banana trees that come up, and they're 10 feet tall and seem so solid. But if you start pulling the all it is layer after layer after layer that doesn't have a central core, doesn't have a heartwood, doesn't have a solid center to it. And that's what to say. And with the mental formations, thoughts and emotion, they keep going around and around themselves until it feels like it's really solid, and it feels like it's really our essence. But in the end, all it is just layer upon layer of thought and emotion, and usually it's always revolving around me. So we keep maintaining ourselves in dukkha. So it's being able to understand that clearly, and being able to say, well, how we create these identities, how we create these views, how we create these perceptions of ourselves and of the world around us, and having a healthy skepticism of what we're creating, and what do we want to create. And that's where the Buddha, where the Buddha keeps emphasizing, I teach only two things: dukkha and cessation of dukkha, suffering and the end of suffering. So that being able to keeping one's attention on what's most important. Because what feels important, of course, is our sense of self, in that how do people see me? How do I relate to them? And am I better? Am I worse? Am I equal? And we keep fretting around that and spinning around that. But the Buddha said, that is dukkha itself, and it's that fruitless attempt to try to find a stable position of who one thinks one is, And just see, that is dukkha, and that can be released, that can be relinquished, that can be let go of. And when we do let go of that, what we experience is a tremendous freeing the heart of that burden. That's one of the chants in the new chanting book. That these these 5 khandhas, these 5 aggregates of being, are a burden. And we carry this burden around. So being able to see through that, see it clearly, and that just releasing that burden, and then what that opens to is a this truth discerning awareness, learning how to dwell in that mindfulness and discernment, learning to dwell in awareness and clarity. And because that's the basic function of the human heart, the human mind, is to know, and that's this quality of saying when the thing from this is what the primary meaning of the word Buddha, to be the one who knows, to be one who is awakened, and that's a refuge that we can dwell in. We can establish a presence within that. That's so for the forest masters. So much of that. Well, there's this simple teaching. It was be the one who knows. Pay attention to how to establish that quality of knowing, awakening to that, and dwelling in that quality of awakeness. It's a directing of attention and a way that we can establish the heart within that. So I'll offer that for reflection this evening. Okay, so this evening is the lunar observance, and for the vigil tonight, I know myself, Ajahn Kurundamo, Ajahn Yaniko, who we've just come back, I'm just